It was midnight on November 9, 1999, in Matamoros, Mexico. Ocio Cardenas Guillen stood in the dark, his finger on a gun. 2 U.S. agents sat frozen in their car. He wanted them gone. Screams echoed behind him. Minutes later, the agents fled, alive, but shaken. Weeks before, Cardenas had killed his friend to seize power. He married ex-soldiers to make a private army. He pulled guns, threatened lives, and showed no mercy. And this was only the beginning. Behind the tanker trucks and border checkpoints lay an empire built on fear. The deeper truth? What comes next will chill you. This is a true story. Subscribe now to @Unbelievable True Story, and watch to the end. A lonely street by the Rio Grande. A soft breeze shivers through lamplight. No one stirs. But underneath, a storm brews. 3 questions hang in the air. Who is pulling these triggers in the shadows? What secrets hide behind armored trucks rolling across town? And who will pay when power collides with fear? This is not fiction. Every detail is real. You can check it. This is the Gulf Cartel's smuggling empire, and it changed the border forever. In the 1930s, Matamoros was a sleepy town. Then came Juan Nepomuceno Guerra. He smuggled bottles of whiskey and moonshine into Texas. It was small scale, just bootleggers on horseback riding across the Rio Grande. By the 1970s, Guerra's son, Juan Garcia Abrego, joined. They smuggled heroin and marijuana. Soon, they met Colombian bosses. Money and violence poured in. By the mid-80s, a $10 billion cocaine empire was humming, protected by bribes to police, politicians, even judges. Garcia Abrego arrested in 1996. No heir stepped forward. The cartel splintered. Into that chaos stepped Ocio Cardenas Guillen. He was a low-level dealer, but he killed his friend Salvador El Javi Gomez Herrera in mid-1999 to take power. Cardenas moved fast. He recruited 30 former Mexican Special Forces soldiers. They became Los Zetas, trained killers with machine guns, bombs, and tanks. Their first act of terror, on November 9th, they chased U.S. agents from Matamoros at gunpoint. That moment changed everything. This is a real story. Every fact you hear is public. You can check it yourself. If real-life mysteries leave you breathless, subscribe now to @Unbelievable True Story. Because the next truth we uncover might hit even closer to home. Matamoros shimmered in the midday sun. Trucks laden with cocaine rolled toward Texas bridges. But behind every load was Los Zetas, 30 ex-soldiers bound to Ocio Cardenas by fear and cash. They wore camouflage and cold steel. They moved in unmarked vans. No one stopped them. Inside cartel safe houses, whispers of torture and execution spread. Families watched trucks leave and never return. Cardenas's power grew. He answered only to himself. He had guns, money, and an army. But not everything was smooth. Rival cartels, the Tijuana Cartel, Sinaloa, watched the Gulf Cartel's rise. In 2002, a secret meeting in Reynosa almost ended in bloodshed. Police had infiltrated. A raid unraveled bridges, loaded trucks, and shaky alliances. Questions began to surface. What drove ex-soldiers to fight for narcos? How could a cartel boss threaten U.S. agents and still walk free? What price did ordinary people pay as narco convoys flooded the border? June 2003. The DEA learned about a massive shipment bound for Houston. U.S. agents and Mexican police prepared. The night was still. Then gunfire. Los Zetas broke through, escorting cartel arms in armored trucks. Guarded by ex-soldiers. Guns barking. One agent was hit. The shipments got through. In response, the U.S. Treasury labeled Cardenas specially designated narcotics trafficker. Assets were frozen. Helicopters shadowed the border. But arrests lagged. Corruption ran deep. Judges, mayors, even generals had cartel money under the table. Inside Matamoros schools, teachers spoke quietly. They won't let us teach about fear. The students ask why they can't sleep at night. The cartel's grip was tighter than law itself. This is not fiction. Every fact is part of a real case you can verify yourself. If real-life mysteries leave you breathless, subscribe now to @Unbelievable True Story, because the next truth we uncover might hit even closer to home. Years passed. Cardenas captured in 2003, Mexico extradited him to the U.S. in 2007. His empire shook, but not collapsed. The Gulf Cartel stayed strong, but Los Zetas had tasted power. They wanted more. In 2010, they split. Armed and angry, they turned on their former bosses. Towns turned into battlegrounds. Veracruz saw massacres. Highways ran red with ambushes. Farmers told of masked men dragging villagers into the night. Again, questions surfaced. What happens when your bodyguard becomes your enemy? How does a cartel fracturing spark a nation's nightmare? The horrors continued through the 2010s, ambushes, kidnappings, and rival factions, the Matamoros, the Zetas, the Scorpions, all vying for control. It started with a handshake that never meant peace. In early 2010, a low-level Gulf lieutenant executed a Zetas member in Reynosa. Some say it was retaliation. Others say it was betrayal. Whatever it was, it shattered the alliance. Los Zetas, former soldiers with military training, turned their rifles on their old bosses. And the streets turned red. Reynosa, March 2010. Civilians crouched behind market stalls. Trucks with gun turrets rolled down the avenue. Shoppers screamed. Bullets ricocheted off walls. It was the first real battle. But it wouldn't be the last. Every night, families turned off lights to hide. The streets were ruled by convoys of masked men. "We heard the trucks before we saw them," said a survivor. "They came with music playing. That's when we knew someone would die." From 2010 to 2012, the violence grew worse. Tamaulipas, entire towns fell under Zeta control. The Gulf Cartel retaliated with executions. Monterrey, Mexico's third-largest city, turned into a battlefield. San Fernando, 2010, one of the most horrifying scenes in cartel history. August 2010, a bus carrying 72 migrants, men, women, teens, was stopped. They were trying to cross to the U.S. Los Zetas captured them. When they refused to smuggle drugs, they were shot, one by one. 72 bodies, scattered in a barn, blindfolded, some still with hands raised. "How can men do this?" a soldier reportedly asked. No one had answers. Just blood in the dirt. After 2012, the war escalated, not just inside Mexico, but along the U.S. border. McAllen, Laredo, Brownsville. Drugs flowed north. Bodies came back south. 2013, the Gulf Cartel split into three main factions. The Matamoros, controlling Reynosa and part of Matamoros. The Zetas, once loyal to Jose Cardenas's family. The Scorpions, a violent offshoot operating between Matamoros and Miguel Alemán. Each group claimed loyalty to the original Gulf Cartel, but none agreed who should lead. Their war became personal. Assassinations, drive-bys, beheadings, torture. June 2015. In broad daylight, gunmen sprayed a street festival. Children hid under food stands. At least 15 died. No one was arrested. Phones stopped working. Cell towers cut by cartels. Ambulances were blocked. Journalists silenced. By 2017, more than 25,000 people were officially missing in Tamaulipas. Some estimates say double that. Maria, 32, lost her husband in 2016. He was a baker. He left to deliver bread, and never came back. "I searched for months," she said. "They told me he might be in a mass grave. They told me not to ask." She still waits by the phone. Still sleeps with the lights on. Still watches the street before stepping outside. Meanwhile, U.S. agencies began a quiet but powerful offensive. Operation Jalisco tracked cross-border money laundering. Project Southbound seized cartel-owned properties in Texas and California. Joint DEA/ICE raids targeted Gulf Cartel suppliers in Atlanta, Chicago, and Houston. 2015, the U.S. extradited key lieutenants like Mario El Pelon Ramirez Trevino. But for every head cut off, two grew back. Cartel commanders kept shifting identities. New leaders used coded radio, satellite phones, burner devices. They built narco tanks, handmade war vehicles, some with armor, mounted guns, even spikes welded onto bumpers. "It's like Mad Max," one officer said. By the early 2020s, the cartel wasn't one monster, it was many hydras, all fighting to survive. Some towns made uneasy peace. Others lived in fear. March 2023. 4 U.S. citizens crossed into Matamoros for a medical procedure. Cartel gunmen mistook them for DEA agents. 2 were killed. 2 rescued days later by Mexican forces. The world watched. Cameras came to Matamoros. The town held its breath. A week later, 5 cartel members were found tied and abandoned with a note. "We apologize for the confusion. They acted without orders." But the message was clear, the cartel still ruled. Even remorse came with blood. Today, in parts of Tamaulipas, silence hangs heavy. Houses are empty. Schools abandoned. Stray dogs walk cracked sidewalks. Some streets are untouched, as if waiting for their owners to return. Graffiti covers the walls, CDG, Matamoros, Zetas, Ciclones. Each name a warning. Each name a memory. And behind every door, a family waits. For justice. For truth. Or just for the sound of a key turning in the lock. This is not fiction. Every name, date, place, and incident is taken from verified sources, government reports, news investigations, survivor testimonies, and court records. You can check everything. It happened. And in the heart of Matamoros, a bakery still stands. The sign reads Panaderia Los Hermanos. No one bakes bread there anymore. But every morning, someone leaves 2 fresh rolls by the door. Have you heard this story before? Do you think the war ever ended? Or just changed names? Right pointing finger emoji, if you're drawn to real stories that stay with you. Subscribe now to @Unbelievable True Story. Because every week, we reveal the darkest truths hidden in plain sight. They no longer wear camouflage. They wear tailored suits. They no longer carry assault rifles in the open. They carry briefcases, burner phones, political connections. The Gulf Cartel today is no longer a single monster. It is fragments of a criminal past wrapped in modern skin. Operating under code names like Ciclones, Matamoros, and Scorpiones, factions now fight not just with bullets, but with influence. Ciudad Victoria, 2023. A businessman opens a new nightclub downtown. It's a modern dream, glass walls, chrome bar, neon lights. Within a week, he receives a visit. Not from police. Not from officials. From men in branded polos, well-dressed, polite, but firm. 20%. Weekly. Or we burn it. He pays. He doesn't ask where the money goes. Everyone in Tamaulipas already knows. The modern Gulf Cartel hides in plain sight. Fuel theft rings embedded in legitimate gas stations. Shell construction firms winning public contracts. Cross-border real estate deals stretching into McAllen, Houston, and San Diego. Cryptocurrency laundering replacing briefcases of cash. Even the traditional plaza bosses have adapted. They no longer shout orders in person. They use secure channels, encrypted texts, and layers of intermediaries. Truth is dangerous. In Tamaulipas, it can be fatal. Between 2010 and 2023, more than 25 journalists were killed or disappeared while investigating cartel activity. July 20, 2022. A respected journalist for Expresso newspaper in Ciudad Victoria. He wrote about local corruption, cartel extortion, and fuel theft. That morning, As he stepped into his car with his daughter, gunmen opened fire. Antonio died instantly. His daughter clung to life for hours before passing. No suspects were arrested. Message received. Other journalists stopped writing names. Some started using code words like the group, or the organization. Others just left the region entirely. One anonymous writer posted, "We do not write to change things anymore. We write so the dead are not forgotten." October 2023. Leaked audio surfaced. A candidate allegedly receiving funding from a cartel faction. Promises of protection, access to public works, and silence in exchange for campaign help. The tape went viral. Days later, the man disappeared. No body. No investigation. 1 week after, another candidate dropped out of the race, citing family safety. "We do not run against ghosts," he told a reporter. "And these ghosts carry guns." In some towns, mayors no longer campaign. They're appointed, or warned not to interfere. This isn't democracy. It's narco-politics. Jose Alfredo El Primido Hernandez Campos, a rising cartel figure in the Ciclones faction, nicknamed the favorite nephew. In 2021, Mexican Marines captured him during a raid in Tamaulipas. Within 12 hours, a convoy of cartel gunmen ambushed the Marine convoy. Bullets flew for 20 minutes. Civilians scattered. A child was hit by a stray round. El Primido was rescued. A day later, a video appeared online. He laughed, toasted with beer, and waved to the camera. He said only one thing: "You can't hold a man backed by God and the Gulf." Now, the towns don't scream anymore. They whisper. Valle Hermoso, San Fernando, Ciudad Mier. Deserted homes. Streets overgrown. Children too scared to play outside. Stores close by 6 p.m. Drivers refuse to use highways after dark. Mothers sleep with knives under pillows. One American family, whose cousin was kidnapped in 2022, described the town like this: "It's not war. It's worse. It's waiting. Waiting for something you can't stop. And praying it never comes." This is not a movie. This is not fiction. Every name, every location, every act described, is part of a real story you can verify yourself. Court records, news reports, survivor interviews. You can look them up. We just connected the dots. There's a new generation growing up under this shadow. Children who don't know playgrounds. Teens who memorize code words, not fairy tales. Young boys dreaming not of football, but armored trucks. In some schools, there are drills. Not for fires. Not for earthquakes. But for gunmen. Teachers show students how to lie flat. How to stay silent. How not to move even if a friend gets hit. Imagine learning that before learning how to write. Sophia's drawing, Nuevo Laredo, 2023. A 7-year-old girl's sketch went viral. A truck with spikes. A masked man with a rifle. A girl hiding behind a cactus. When asked, she said, "That's how we play narcos. The good ones always die." The teacher said nothing. There was nothing to say. A former Sicario, cartel hitman, now in witness protection, gave this interview. "You want to know the truth? We were just boys. Hungry, angry boys. The cartel fed us, gave us guns, told us we were kings." He pauses. Looks down. "We weren't kings. We were ghosts. We haunted our own streets." He weeps. So does the interviewer. There's a small church in San Fernando. Empty pews. Dusty altar. Candles long melted. But every month, someone lights one candle. Leaves a note beside it. Same handwriting. Same message. "Forgive us, for we were children too." Have you ever driven past the border towns and wondered, what really hides behind those fences? Do you believe peace is possible? Or just silence? If true stories like this leave you speechless, subscribe now to @Unbelievable True Story. Because every week, we reveal the deepest truths hidden in plain sight. The cocaine no longer travels only in trucks. It flies on private jets, in cargo ships with fake bills, in legitimate exports of avocados, limes, and cars. The Gulf Cartel today still makes billions every year, but now they use real estate developers in Houston to launder drug money. They buy auto shops in Dallas and Atlanta. They wire money through hawala networks and crypto wallets. In Tamaulipas, one house was seized in 2024. Inside, an underground room filled with $42 million in cash. Dozens of phones. Surveillance drones. Blueprints of 3 U.S. border checkpoints. They don't hide like before, one agent said. Now, they blend in. They look like everyone else. Over the past 10 years, dozens of U.S. Customs and Border Patrol agents have been arrested for working with cartels. Some took bribes to wave trucks through. Others gave confidential schedules and inspection routes. One was caught helping build hidden tunnels under El Paso. Case: Officer Carlos Cervantes, 2022. He made $83,000 a year. Cartels offered $150,000 per truck. In 18 months, he allowed through at least 23 loads of heroin, fentanyl, and cocaine. When arrested, he said, "They were already inside. What could I do?" In 2023, the U.S. launched Operation Desert Shield 2.0, a digital war on smuggling. 185 surveillance towers installed. 19,000 miles of sensors. AI-powered heat mapping to detect hidden bodies or vehicles. But cartels adapted faster. They use $20,000 military-grade drones with night vision and payload delivery. Encrypted communications in open-source apps like Signal and Telegram. Ghost SIMs that bounce signals across borders. One drone flew a kilo of fentanyl across the Rio Grande every night for a month, before it was shot down. "It's not a war of guns anymore," said a border tech analyst. "It's a war of signals." You might think the Gulf Cartel stays in Mexico. But their fingerprints are in Los Angeles, distribution hubs working with Mexican-American street gangs. Chicago, cartel logistics handled through a Shell meatpacking company. New York, real estate projects funded with laundered narco money. Atlanta, synthetic opioid routes run by subcontracted dealers. And across southern Texas, seemingly innocent mechanics, truckers, and cargo inspectors are quietly on the payroll. "It's not a cartel over there," said one DEA informant. "It's a cartel next door." April 2025, San Fernando, Mexico. The town has only 2 open schools. Church bells no longer ring. Shops close by 4 p.m. But the wind still moves. One journalist returned, disguised, to the site of the 2010 massacre. He found a collapsed barn. Remains of burned candles. A child's drawing tacked to the wall. It read, "They didn't want to die. They just wanted to go home." The wind blew through the cracks. No one else was there. But the silence said everything. This is not fiction. These are facts you can verify. Public testimonies. DEA indictments. Mexican court documents. Survivor interviews. Award-winning journalism. We're not making up horror. We're exposing it. Somewhere tonight, a teenager scrolls through TikTok. He sees a convoy of narco trucks in Reynosa. They look cool. They blast music. They wear gold chains and sunglasses. He thinks, maybe that's power. Maybe that's respect. Maybe I could be one of them. But he doesn't see what comes next. The funerals. The mothers who never sleep. The empty homes. The little sisters waiting at doors that never open again. Back in Matamoros, there is a house that hasn't been touched in 10 years. It belonged to a man named Luis, a mechanic who once refused to pay cartel protection. They took him in the night. No one saw him again. But every week since, someone, no one knows who, places a red rose at his doorstep. Rain or shine. For 520 weeks. The note under the flower reads, "Gone. But not silent." Have you walked a street like this before, Quiet, abandoned, full of stories no one dares to speak? What would you do if the ghosts lived next door? Right pointing finger emoji, if these stories strike your soul. Subscribe now to @Unbelievable True Story. Because every week, we uncover the darkest truths, hidden in plain sight. 2024, Mexico City. A confidential leak shook the Mexican government. An anonymous whistleblower, calling themselves El Silencio, uploaded thousands of secret documents to the dark web. These weren't just rumors. They were verified records from police, military, and intelligence agencies dating back 20 years. Inside the files were surveillance photos of U.S. and Mexican politicians meeting cartel leaders, payment logs from cartel accountants showing bribes to police chiefs and governors, transcripts of phone calls between military generals and known drug traffickers. One audio clip caught fire. "If you arrest him, you'll have 10 dead officers by morning. Let him go. You understand? Let him go." The voice was linked to a federal commander in Tamaulipas. His response? Silence. Then, retirement. Beneath all the politics and money, were the dead. By 2024, the Mexican government officially admitted there were over 110,000 people reported missing nationwide. Over 30,000 of them from cartel territories like Tamaulipas. But in many towns, no one files a report anymore. Why? Because they know no one will investigate. They fear they'll vanish too. "My brother disappeared in 2019, said Claudia, 27, from Reynosa. "We found his car, his wallet, his phone. No body. No answer. The police said, don't look. Just pray." In 2024, a new civilian group formed, Los Buscadores del Silencio, the Searchers of Silence. They are mothers, sisters, grandmothers. With shovels, flashlights, and dogs. They walk deserts, dig forests, follow whispers. Sometimes, they find bones. Other times, empty earth. But they never stop. Though Ocio Cardenas Guillen was arrested in 2003 and sentenced to 25 years in U.S. prison, he never truly vanished. In 2024, whispers emerged that Ocio still influences operations through coded letters and couriers inside ADX Florence, America's most secure prison. One letter was intercepted. "Control is about loyalty, not presence. I built loyalty. I planted it in the roots. My voice lives in every bullet fired in Matamoros." Investigators believe his son, Elogielito, is now active in the Ciclones faction. Still loyal. Still ruthless. One cartel defector said, "Ocio didn't die. He multiplied." Back in the U.S., the cartels are rarely mentioned in political debates. Why? Because to talk about cartels means talking about the opioid crisis, fueled by cartel-supplied fentanyl. Gun trafficking, 80% of cartel firearms come from U.S. dealers. Money laundering through U.S. banks and shell companies. In 2025, an investigation revealed that one Gulf Cartel front company owned real estate in Phoenix, Houston, and Miami, worth over $74 million. Yet no arrests were made. The buildings remain open, rented, functional, profitable. "It's cleaner than cocaine," said one former money mule. "No scent, no bullets, just paperwork." On TikTok, thousands of teenagers follow accounts showing cartel life. Men firing rifles into the air. Exotic animals, stacks of cash, fast cars. Songs glorifying Zetas, Ciclones, Scorpiones. Hashtags like #NarcoLife, #Gulf Cartel, and #Corridos Tumbados have over 500 million views. But behind this spectacle? Fathers executed in front of their kids. Families displaced overnight. Children recruited as lookouts by age 11. Yet the algorithm doesn't show the blood. It shows the performance. "We used to kill in the dark," said one ex-Zeta. "Now they live stream it." July 2025, Miguel Alemán, Tamaulipas. The Mexican Navy, aided by US DEA intel, launched a final high-risk operation. Their target, a remote ranch used as a command center by the Gulf Cartel's Scorpiones faction. What they found shocked even hardened officers. 18 AR-15 rifles, 3 rocket launchers, 2 armored vehicles, 9 phones, each connected to a different US contact. But deeper inside the compound, they found something else. A wall covered with photographs. Hundreds of them. Missing people. Victims. Children. Old men. Women holding babies. Each picture had one word below. Deuda, dead. No one claimed responsibility. No survivors were captured. And within 24 hours, all local news about the raid vanished from public networks. Just gone. In Matamoros, there's a 2-story home with yellow paint. The windows are shattered. The front gate rusted shut. But every Sunday, a young boy walks by. He's only 10. He carries a small notebook. He stands at the gate. He writes a name inside. Then leaves a paper flower through the bars. It's a tradition now. He's done it 34 times. When asked why, he said, because people lived here. And no one else remembers them. This story is real. Every massacre, every name, every raid, every leak, and every person mentioned, is backed by verified documents, court records, or journalistic investigations. If anything, the truth is even darker than what we can show. This isn't just the story of a cartel. This is the story of what power does without limits. What silence costs a country. And what happens when criminals learn to wear suits? Have you heard the whispers across the Rio Grande? Do you believe the war ever ended? Or did it just learn to hide better? Subscribe to @Unbelievable True Story, because we bring you the stories no one dares to tell. Every week, we pull another shadow into the light. Watch our next true crime feature. Or explore the playlist. Because the next secret might be waiting right behind your streetlight.